The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, I'm Sean Esterly with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and welcome to today's webinar, which is hosted by the Clean Energy Solutions Center and the International Renewable Energy Agency. And today's webinar is focused on education and skills in the renewable energy sector. And one important note of mention before we begin our presentations is that the Clean Energy Solutions Center does not endorse or recommend specific products or services. Information provided in this webinar is featured in the Solutions Center's resource library as one of many best practices resources reviewed and selected by technical experts. And I just want to go over some of the webinar features. For audio, you do have two options. You may either listen to your computer or over your telephone. And if you do choose to listen through your computer, just select the mic and speakers option in the audio pane. And doing that will just eliminate the feedback of any echo or the possibility of any echo or feedback. And if you choose to dial in by phone, just select the telephone option, and that box will provide you with the telephone number, access code, and PIN that you should use to dial in. And panelists, we just ask that you please mute your device while you're not presenting. And if anyone has any issues with the webinar platform, you can call the help desk at the bottom of that slide, which is 888-259-3826. We do encourage anyone from the audience to ask questions at any point during the webinar. The attendees are muted, but you can ask your questions by submitting them through the question pane. I will then present those questions to the panelists at the end of the webinar during our question and answer session. And if you're having difficulty viewing any of the presentations, you can find PDF copies of those at cleanenergysolutions.org/training. And then within about a week of today's broadcast, we'll also post an audio recording of the presentation to that site. Now, today's webinar agenda is centered around the presentations from our guest panelists, Nicolas Fischl, Stephanie Pennington, and Dr. Axel von Perfall. And these expert panelists have been kind enough to join us to discuss one of the greatest barriers to the adoption of renewable energy technologies, which is the critical shortage of skilled personnel to develop, design, finance, build, operate, and maintain renewable energy projects. So before our speakers begin their presentations, I just want to provide a short informative overview of the Clean Energy Solutions Center initiative. Then following the presentations, we'll have our question and answer session, where the panelists will address questions submitted by the audience, and then some closing remarks and a very brief survey for the attendees. Now, this slide provides a bit of background in terms of how the Solutions Center came to be formed. And the Solutions Center is an initiative of the Clean Energy Ministerial and is supported through a partnership with UN Energy. It was launched in April of 2011, is primarily led by Australia, the United States, and other CEN partners. Some outcomes of this unique partnership include support of developing countries, through enhancement of resources on policies relating to energy access, no-cost expert policy assistance, and peer-to-peer learning and training tools such as this webinar that you're attending today. And there's four primary goals for the Solutions Center. First goal is to serve as a clearinghouse of clean energy policy resources. And the second goal is to serve to share policy best practices, data, and analysis tools specific to clean energy policies and programs. And third, the Solutions Center delivers dynamic services that enable expert assistance, learning, and peer-to-peer sharing of experiences. And then lastly, the center fosters dialogue on emerging policy issues and innovation around the globe. Now, our primary audience is energy policymakers and analysts from governments and technical organizations in all countries, but then we also strive to engage with the private sector, NGOs, and also civil society. Now, one of the marquee features that the Solutions Center is proud to offer is its expert policy assistance, known as Ask an Expert. And we've established a broad team of over 30 experts from around the globe who are all available to provide remote policy advice and analysis to all countries at zero cost. So, for example, in the area of renewable electricity policy, we are very pleased to have Paul Kamar, the Energy Education Director at the Renewable and Sustainable Energy Institute, who is serving as our expert. So if you have a need for policy assistance on renewable electricity policy or any other clean energy sector, we do encourage you to use this service. Again, it is provided to you free of charge. So to request assistance, you simply submit your request by registering through the Ask an Expert feature at cleanenergysolutions.org/expert. We also invite you to spread the word about this service to those in your networks and organizations. And so in summary, we just encourage you to explore and take advantage of the Solution Center resources and services, including the expert policy assistance, database of clean energy policy resources, subscribe to our webinar newsletters, and participate in more webinars like this. And so now I'd like to provide some brief introductions for our distinguished panelists today. And our first speaker today will be Stephanie Pennington, a junior professional associate at Irena, where she is leading the work of the Irena Renewable Energy Learning Partnership, a project which aims to increase awareness of and broaden access to renewable energy educational resources and opportunities. And then our second speaker today will be Nicolas Fauchot, a program officer for resource assessment at Irena, where he coordinated the development of the Global Atlas for Renewable Energy. And then our final speaker will be Dr. Axel van Perval, and Dr. Perval is Managing Director at Alinho Renewable Energy Experts, and Alinho was the first recruiting company in Germany with a complete focus on renewable energies and adjacent sectors. And so with those brief introductions, please join me in welcoming Stephanie to the webinar. Yep, and we can see your screen, Stephanie.
Okay,
but,
thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. So as Sean mentioned, I'm a junior professional associate working with Irena, and I work on a project called the Irena Renewable Energy Learning Partnership. Just to give you a brief introduction to Irena, it's the International Renewable Energy Agency. We're an intergovernmental organization mandated by countries worldwide to promote the widespread and sustainable use of all forms of renewable energy. And we currently have 130 member states and 38 states in accession. IRELP is a project of Irena that was started about 2 years ago with the goal to increase awareness of and access to renewable energy education and training, with the ultimate goal of helping to build a highly skilled workforce for the renewable energy sector. The first phase of IRELP really focused on collecting information on what sorts of education and training opportunities currently exist worldwide. So in doing that, we created a very large database with all sorts of information on education and training. So this includes about 2,000 courses. These are both short courses, such as training courses, vocational training courses, or professional development courses that may be only a few days or a couple of weeks, but also information on associate programs, bachelor degrees, masters, and PhDs. We also include information on webinars. These are both archived past webinars and upcoming webinars. At any given time, we have about 50 upcoming webinars on our database. We also have training guides and internship opportunities. So IRELP courses are focused specifically on renewable energy. Those are the programs that we collect information on. We do not collect information on sort of generic engineering programs, which may teach skills that are relevant to the renewable energy sector, but don't have a specific renewable energy focus. We are sort of limited in what we can collect due to language, but we are really helped by our partners. So we work with a range of different partners, everything from networks to regional centers, industry associations, and educational institutions. So we have partners all across the world working in the US, in China, all across Europe, in Japan, and they really help us to gather information from their specific regions. We've seen a huge growth in interest in this project. We now have users all over the world. We get about 7,000 users a month, and about a third of these users are returning, which indicates to us that they're not just coming to find one program, for example, a university program, but that they're actually looking for training or internship opportunities on a regular basis. And we also have established a very strong social media following, which has been very important for us to reach out, particularly to young audiences, students who are interested in this sector. So we have over 150,000 followers on Facebook and Twitter, and we invite you to join us there as well. Another important way that we gather information on what education and training exists worldwide is through our IRELP Global Network. The Global Network is formed of very accomplished young individuals. Most are students or recent graduates, and they help us to collect information specific to their region. And we like to involve them in projects that are of specific interest to their research areas or educational areas. And in return for their expertise and their help, we try to help them also get a footing in the industry, because most of these students are looking to continue their careers in the renewable energy sector. So I'll quickly run through some of the resources that IRELP offers on our website. We have an education center, which includes our databases for courses, webinars, training guides, and then we also have some information on resources for educators and on the Irena Scholarship program. So our course database is freely accessible and online, and it includes information from all across the world in multiple languages. You can use the search tool to really narrow down what you're looking for, so you can search by a certain topic area, you can search by region, by country. So for example, if you wanted to look specifically for a solar course in Brazil, you could really narrow that down even to the city where you're living. I've highlighted just a few courses here that are on IRELP, but this is a very small number of what is offered on our platform. But these may be some courses of interest because they're free and all online. So this is a great resource if you're interested in renewables, but you don't want to have to pay or commit to a really long-term course. You could just try it out online for free. Our webinars database, as I mentioned, we usually have about 50 upcoming webinars. So we include not only the webinars that are offered through Irena, but by our partners, and such as the Clean Energy Solutions Center and others. And webinars are a really great way to get training in the sector. Most of them are free. I would say about 99% of what we offer on our platform are free, and they really help you to see what's going on in the sector right now, current trends. We also have training guides and manuals. These aren't just any renewable energy documents or reports. These are really focused on hands-on activities. So learning how to, for example, build your own biogas digester, or how to do a solar site inspection or something of this nature. We've recently added resources for educators as well. Currently we just have about 20 resources. So these include activities, toolkits, lesson plans for teachers to integrate renewables into the classroom. But we are in the process of creating another database which will have over 120 resources for teachers. And just a little bit of information about the Irena Scholarship program. It's run in partnership with the Masdar Institute of Science and Technology in Abu Dhabi. Students can apply to the Irena Scholarship program to have a full scholarship in one of 8 master's programs offered through Masdar Institute. And the students are then involved in a high-level Irena lecture where we bring in experts from around the world to discuss on different renewable energy topics. And the students are also invited to participate in Irena events and also to contribute to the activities in our work program. Many of them come as interns and are hired on by Irena following their graduation. And we also have a career center. The career center has our internships database, some career guidance, and then some inspirational videos about what it's like to work in the renewable energy sector. And so we have some insights from people from the WWF, Greenpeace, World Wind Energy Association, these sorts of organizations. So in our internships database, we're always adding new internships. I'd say we add about 1 or 2 a day at the minimum. And many of these are ongoing programs that are continuously recruiting. So just as in the course database, this is publicly accessible and covers the entire world, and you can narrow down your search based on your interests, your area of expertise, and when you want to do your internship, how long you would like it to be, where you would want to do it. So if you're looking for a career opportunity, this is a great place to start. We also have some reports on skills and job trends in the renewable energy sector to give you an idea if you're maybe studying and considering a career, what areas might be growing or maybe an interesting area to focus your education. While we don't actually list renewable energy jobs, we just provide internship opportunities. We do give some information on where you can start your renewable energy job search with over 40 resources. So if you're looking for a job, maybe you're not a young student and looking for an internship, this is a great place to look for some sites to focus specifically on renewable energy jobs. And we do also send out a weekly newsletter with information on our upcoming courses, internship opportunities, and webinars. And you can subscribe for our newsletter on our homepage, and you'll see a little subscription box there. So while IRELP has actually shown that there are an increasing number of renewable energy programs worldwide, one thing that we've also noticed is that there is a big discrepancy in the location of this education and training. So you can see from this image the number of programs that we have in Europe versus Africa. And over the course of the past 2 years, since IRELP has been launched, we have received numerous requests from educational institutions looking to develop renewable energy curriculum. And one of the roles that Irena feels that it can play is actually facilitating discussion between these institutions and those that have experience in developing renewable energy curriculum. And this is how we started our idea to build a community for discussion. Once we started to build the community, we realized, though, that it could be much more than just a place to discuss renewable energy education and curriculum development, but actually a place where everyone can come to discuss their ideas about renewable energy. So it's a forum where people can share their questions and their experiences and opportunities. And we really hope that this will be a good platform for collaboration and to connect people who are interested in the renewable energy sector. So I will leave it at that, but if you're interested in the work of IRELP, please do follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and feel free to contact us through the emails provided, and I'll hand it over to my colleague, Nicola.
Hello. First, I would like to thank everyone for attending this webinar. We are really delighted that the Clean Energy Solutions Center can help us to disseminate and promote what we are doing here and having a conversation on this very important topic. Myself, I will try to illustrate the issues that we see in the renewable energy sector regarding the supply of skilled workers for the renewable energy sector. Today, from the analysis we made in-house and the Irena jobs report, we have calculated that there should be an approximate number of 5.7 million people already working in the sector. So usually these numbers are undermined by most people, and here with this report we are able to put clearly on the charts that this renewable energy sector is indeed a major sector for employment, and as I will show in the presentation, this is something that will grow over time in the future. Already in the renewable energy sector, in some of the subsectors, you do have a shortage of workers, and this has been a growing concern for the industry. And you find companies or you find the industry association that have invested already in trying to identify the gaps and trying to propose solutions. And in particular, what they are saying is that governments would need to help them to acquire all these workers. So there have been a few studies, not many studies, but a few studies on the kind of people we would be looking in the renewable energy sector today, considering the growth that we are facing in this sector. What we see is that the jobs in the renewable energy sector are mostly high-level, high-skilled occupations that require to have a degree. What's happening right now is that the supply of skilled individuals in the sector, specifically dedicated to the sector, is lagging behind the market development, which is very strong. And therefore, what companies are doing, they are hiring individuals from other sectors and training them on the job. And what we see around us in the sector is that most people we are working with are coming from a completely different field. And only now we can see that there is a wave of young professionals that are coming, that have been trained on renewable energy, but it was not the case in the last 10 years. At the ILO, International Labour Organization, they identified already the occupations that are difficult to fill today, only with the current development, the business as usual development in the renewable energy sector. What we see is that the training or the education system is reactive. It is following the market trend, so it's behind the market. So the market is growing in solar. There will be a shortage of workers, and suddenly the education system will respond. In particular, what we see from IREP with short courses that can be used to adapt the skills of an individual to start working in the respective sectors. So it works for some of the skills that are needed, but some of them also require a deep understanding of the energy market or the renewable energy sector or a specific technology, and in that case it creates a bottleneck in the recruitment. This is an example also of the, as Stephanie was mentioning, the geographic discrepancies. So what you see is that for geothermal energy, the market has responded to the needs of geothermal energy for the current and the past installation that happened, mostly in the regions that you have here. But the problem we will have is for the future installations, because we foresee that there will be a development of geothermal energy in the Andes region, in East Africa or in Southeast Asia, and there apparently the education sector may not be already in place to provide the persons that will be needed to work on these sectors. Also, what we see is that the market itself, the renewable energy market, is extremely policy driven. So one illustrational example I take is North America, because it's very prominent. What you see in Europe, for example, you have a stable policy regime that gives long-term targets and long-term incentives. And in Europe, what you see is that the growth in the wind market, in that case, is pretty stable. And this year, the installation rate for 2013, so it's 2012 figure, but for 2013, were released last week by the Global Wind Energy Council. And the installation rate in Europe is more or less stable for this year. In North America, what you would see for this year is that there has been a boom in 2012 for 15 gigawatts, but this year is only 3 gigawatts. So it's really a strong drop. And in Asia, still leading the market, there has been a gap in 2012, but this year they are at 18 gigawatts, so back to where they were a few years ago. So why North America is so unstable? It is because there is a policy in the US in particular. There is a finance scheme that is the tax credit that is given at federal level, and when there is any uncertainty and any debate at the federal level, then the developers cannot have the security to invest in their projects. So what's happening is a market that is with high very high installation rate and very low installation rate following the discussions at federal level. And the consequence of that is that when there is a high need for projects, then factories are built, there are investments flowing there, and there is a high recruitment of skilled workers. But what happens when there is basically the project pipeline is shrinking because of the discussions. What's happening is that there are a large number of workers that are laid off, and this gives basically a very bad image to the sector, but also it has a very high social cost. So since the development of the renewable energy sector is so policy driven, there has been a work that has been done as a partnership between Irena and REL, the GIZ and IDA in Spain. And what this book is saying is that since for the areas where there is a stable policy regime in place and there are very high targets for renewable energy for the future, it is important also to take into account the development of skills and the development for the need of workers for the future. And this book is proposing a methodological framework in order for a country to analyze the needs for a skilled worker in the future for the different renewable energy sectors. So what about the future? So we know already that there is a skill gap in some parts of the renewable energy sector, and this is for 2010 the mix of renewable energies. So what you can see, you have half of traditional biomass, and the power sector is like 18%. And then in Irena, as part of Sustainable Energy for All, we have been working on trying to establish scenario for 2030, and this exercise is called REMAP, and is providing the overview with different scenarios on what's going to happen if we are to double the share of renewable energy worldwide by 2030. So REMAP is providing, has published preliminary findings, and what we see here is that the power sector in particular will be much more prominent, and the total energy produced by renewable energy will reach 132 exajoules. So what will happen is that these different sectors will need to absorb a large number of workers in order to implement these what we forecast for the future. And the question is, since we already have a shortage, will we be able to supply the necessary amount of people to work in the sector in the future? In terms of forecasts, so if we have 5.7 million people working today, what we foresee is that we may have up to 16 to 20 million people working in the sector by 2030, which means that we need to find 10 million people working in the sector more. And these people have to come from somewhere. And the question we are asking ourselves now is, where can these people come from? What we see is that in some parts of the world there is a deficit of skilled workers, in particular for technical professions. So that's the numbers we could find are from different studies. I could not find an analysis that is showing the need for jobs in the future and the supply from the educational sector. So it seems that there is probably a need to look more into detail for that. What we see is that in OECD economies, all the indicators tend to show that there is a deficit of interest for the young generation to work in this technical work, which is not the case. Doesn't seem to be the case in emerging economies. So maybe the gap for educated people for technical professions may be more crucial in developed economy, maybe. And maybe also, if there is a deficit, maybe the skills may have to come for outside OECD countries. And this poses a question on how transferable are the skills in the renewable energy sector. And for the moment, it appears that there is a limited number of transfer because there is no such harmonized curricular or qualification process. So except if the person is working for a large international company, it seems difficult to transfer a person from a country to another country to work on a similar technologies. And this is due to the lack of standard into the sector. What we foresee also is not only that there will be a need for technical workers, but also for all the professions that are supporting the growth of renewable energy. And there, in particular, financial institutions will need to hire people or have persons in-house that are able to understand what these renewable energy projects are and their characteristics in order to be able to invest in these technologies. And there is already currently a gap, apparently, in financial institutions to be able to do so. And this gap may expand in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicolas. Now we'll turn the presentations over to Axel.
Thank you very much, Sean, and for this introduction. My name is Axel von Berfel. I am the managing director of a recruiting firm that is specialized in renewable energies and the surrounding areas like sustainability and also environmental technology. So I might bring a perspective into this webinar which evolves around the industry side. What are the companies looking for? What are the skills that are needed at the moment? And also what challenges are the companies facing at the moment in certain areas of this industry? Because I might also have this like Euro-centric view, starting with Germany, a country which has started very early with renewable energies, and I'm very the figures you have shown, Nicolas, are very impressive for what happens in the other areas of the world. I will show you some figures of the German market, and so the overall perspective is that Germany has been a leader in this field, but I think we're being overtaken, especially at least in terms of numbers and what happens in the other areas of the world. So I'm happy to share with you how the German and European view on this is, because on the development scale, Germany is relatively far ahead, and so maybe that's something the other areas of the world can be might be interested in. Now, just put it in the full screen mode. Okay. Just one word about our company. We do recruiting, meaning headhunting for permanent positions, but we also provide interim experts. That's a field which is developing very quickly in recent time, because more and more companies are looking for very specialized experts, but only for a short period of time. So I will get back to that a little later. And if I see Stephanie's slides, and no, not Stephanie, Sean with the Ask an Expert, also that is goes into the same direction of experts being searched in those parts of the world where renewable energies are developing very fast at the moment. We provide people on all levels, from the expert to the executive, all functions from sales to engineering, and we're based in Germany with 2 offices. Myself, this morning, I'm in Berlin. So our daily business is to bring companies together with people in this field, and I'll get back to that in a moment. Now, these are the numbers I had. More than 800,000 employees for 2012. So that certainly has changed. As I mentioned, Germany has not gone down, but has been stable, at least stable, and will grow slightly overall in the next few years, I assume. But all the other markets will definitely catch up, and that's really an interesting development. If I look at the wind industry, which is a very big and industrialized industry, and from my point of view, one of the most mature industries in this field. We're talking about nearly 300,000 employees at the moment, and there will also be a growth in that field going up to like 250,000 people in also in Germany and in the other European countries. So we'll be around like 400 to 500,000 employees in that sector. So for everybody looking for a job at the moment or looking for a decision where to move into, even if we have a little depression on this topic on the German market, the overall story for renewable energies is still very positive, and it still makes a lot of sense to go into this market because there is a very strong demand, and there will be a strong demand in the future. What is really important about renewable energies is that we always talk about renewable energies and clean energy and so on, and from a distance it might look like one industry, but it's really important to understand that we're talking about very different industries. The wind offshore and alone the wind industry is a big difference between onshore and offshore, not only in terms of products obviously, but also the types of companies are very different and the types of people. We don't see a lot of transfer between, for example, the wind industry and the PV industry, or the bioenergy and the solar thermal energy, because each of those industries are very specific. So basically, if you choose a job, then most of the time you will choose one of those sectors. You will choose bioenergy or PV or whatever, and you will most likely, in most of the careers, stay in that industry. There are some exceptions to that. If you, for example, work in typical staff functions like finance, controlling, human resources, of course it's easy to switch industries, even beyond renewable energies, obviously. And the other sector which is common to all is project finance and project development, because as you might know, most of those industries work on a project basis. So a solar park or wind farm, those are projects, and you always need people who are experts in project development and project finance, and that's somehow similar between the different industries. So that's the only exception I see, but otherwise it's really important to understand that those industries are very different from each other, and that's not only the case in Germany. I guess it's also in many other countries this will be the case. And the development is also very different. The bioenergy and PV are one of the, also worldwide, one of the really big, and wind energy are the three big players in the market. All the rest, even concentrated solar power, you read a lot about it in the press, or solar thermal energy, you read a lot, and there's a lot of attention to it, but from a company point of view, and at the end also from a jobs point of view, the potential is not that high, or the size of the industry is not that big. So that's really important to keep in mind, that there's also a big difference in the growth and in the size of those industry sectors. And what we've seen in recent years in the European industry, and this will probably also happen for to those industries in the developing markets, developing in terms of renewable energies, that companies start quickly into because it's usually a law that will, a feed-in tariff, which will jumpstart this industry in a specific country. So the market will start really quickly. So the companies will have to set up and grow very quickly, and they will hire people like crazy and work on their projects and try to get everything done in the 24 hours of the day. But at some point and many companies are there right now, they've grown so fast, they need to professionalize, introduce professional processes and structures inside their company. to really handle the size of the company. One thing is also the growth abroad. If your home market is saturated, you will start to internationalize. That's what many companies have been doing in recent years. And then there is another third trend, which is from manufacturing to service. If you take the photovoltaics industry in Europe, but probably also in other parts of the world, much of the business has been taken by Chinese companies who are able to produce the product at a good quality and an even better price. So that has kicked out many companies in the field, which has put a strong focus on service, and meaning the maintenance, the repair and the maintenance of wind turbines, of PV systems, but also the engineering services which are related to the construction of those plants. And so there's more and more service around it, and not only the production of the actual products. So also these three trends are actually something that will have an impact on the companies and have an impact on the type of people the companies are looking for. If I take the first example from childhood to adult life, at the in the early years, you needed people who can organize the chaos and who can somehow are capable of handling such a fast growth. But now you need people who can build up structures, who can define clear strategies and split up the market into different sectors, and to have a much more differentiated approach. So the types of people the companies are looking for has changed, and that is the same for the two other factors I mentioned. So that's important to keep in mind if you are if you're looking for a job in this field. Now this is the side of the employees. You need employees who want to work, but you also need employees who want to work in renewable energies. And therefore, from an industry side, so from the side of the companies, it is important to present the industry in a way that it is attractive for future employees. And generally, clean energy is a very fashionable topic, so it's generally positive, but it's in some cases also difficult, because you also have some negative tones about the type of work in renewable energies because of the fast growth. And in some areas of the world, you have like in the European solar sector, you had companies going in bankruptcy. Which showed a certain instability or immaturity of the market. There is still a lot to do for the companies in terms of employer branding or employer attractiveness. So I mentioned here a couple of points which individual companies need to take into account to also attract the right people, because at the end, it's as we say, a war for talents. So the really good people with good skills and expertise in the market, they can choose where they want to work, and so the individual companies have to make sure they provide the type of corporate atmosphere and corporate culture that is that helps to attract those people. Okay, I'll skip this because it really refers more to the company side. But if anybody is interested to that part, please get back to me in the Q&A session later on. This is how companies get in touch with their with potential candidates for employment, where we differentiate between national and international. International being new for the respective company, being new markets where they don't have so much expertise and not yet a well-established personal network. So the methods of acquiring people are a little different, and then there's also a difference between top management, middle management, and then the expert and support functions. The higher you get in the hierarchy, the more often you will work with headhunting companies. So if you progress in your career, I can only recommend to you to get in touch with recruiting firms or headhunting companies that, even like our company, are specialized in this field. Because you never know if the headhunter maybe has at some point, not immediately, but maybe in a year or two, has an important job offer for you, which can be your next interesting career move. So that's certainly something companies are working with, and on the candidate side, on the employee side, I can just encourage you to look for those contacts, build up a network over time. The more you progress in the organization. On the expert side, the job postings are still the most common way to find a job. There are big job platforms like Monster, or regional platforms like Golf Talent, and then there are also specialized job platforms like Green Jobs. So there's a huge variety, and I think Irena or IRL provides a good overview of the job platforms that are available. So that's still a big point. And then networks. Your personal network is also very important, and is becoming more and more important. This part of finding a job, and the social networks, especially platforms like LinkedIn, help a lot to build up your network. And I can just encourage you from a job point of view, for a career point of view, but also for your industry network, which will help you to use those platforms to get connected to people across the globe, because you never know where at some point a new job opportunity might pop up. And then last but not least, there are job fairs which are specialized in this field, and that is also a good opportunity, because you have because usually they are face-to-face meetings or fairs, and you'll have the possibility to present yourself personally and to give a much better and more stronger impression than just by sending over an electronic application. Okay, I'll skip those slides. I can just, there's a list of recommended job websites which I can hand over to anybody who's interested. I've skipped that. One point I wanted to make is regarding interim management and interim experts. We see two sides. On the company side, we see more and more companies looking for experts on a project basis, because especially in the renewable energies, the underlying business is often project-based. So you will have a solar park. So take a German company, and they just acquired a mandate to build a solar park in Chile, South America, for example. Then they will not hire, if they don't have somebody on hand at the moment, because they're the staff is fully booked, then they'll take on an expert, maybe somebody who is already in Chile, as a site manager or a project manager to handle this project. And they'll just employ this person for 3 months or 6 months, and after that they will not be obliged to keep this person on their payroll. So from the company point of view, it's really there are more and more situations where interim management or interim experts are a good thing. And on the other side, we see more and more people who choose to be a freelancer or to be an interim expert, because people like there's a general trend that people want to work more self-defined and with more flexibility, maybe to work at home partially or to work on different international projects. So people are more and more interested, more and more people are willing to see being an interim experts or freelancer, to see that as a career alternative. So those two things come together and result in increasing interim activity. Now, coming to the conclusion for candidates, I still recommend renewable energies. Still, I mean, from a German perspective, because we've had some unhappy times here for this industry. But overall, this is really an attractive and very important and useful industry. So please decide to come to this industry. I can just encourage you to do that. In terms of functions and specializations, of course, we're talking about renewable energies. Everybody thinks, okay, it's about engineering and tech jobs, but those people are in demand, of course, and evergreen. But all the other sectors are also important, especially with rising competition. The more competition you have in the market, the more sales you need, the more marketing you need. You need people who can organize an efficient supply chain. Project management, I've mentioned already. Those are functions and tasks which are important right now and will become even more important in the future. And then one last remark, and this is from somebody like me who is I'm more engaged in my daily business with people who are in the industry already, and who and most of our projects is for we're looking for experienced people. So practical, from our point of view, practical experience is key. And that's what the companies tell us. They are looking for people who have at least a little bit of first experience in this field. Because studies are important, and of course, but at the end it's practical experience. And maybe my recommendation is do internships and try to get into companies and to get first experience in the field. In maybe if you have a choice, maybe instead of doing another type of study or course, summer course or something like that, maybe try to do an internship and get practical experience, because that's what the companies are ultimately looking for. Okay, so far from my side, just some slides on our company, but that's something you can have a look at later on, because those slides will be distributed, I guess. And yeah, so far from my side, and I would like to turn back to Sean to take on the moderation.
Thank you, Axel, and thank you, Stephanie and Nicola, for the presentations. And at this point, we'll move on to the question and answer session of the webinar. And just want to remind all attendees that if you have any questions that you'd like presented to the panelists, you can submit those through the question pane in the GoToWebinar box on your screen. And I do have a couple questions that we've received so far, so we'll start with those. And this first one came in, Stephanie, during your presentation, and it asks, what is the best way to go about applying for the jobs, sets, and internships that you talked about?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? What's the best way to go about applying to jobs and internships?
Yeah, so maybe where can they go to view them, and where can they go to fill out an application? Sure,
okay. So on the IRELP website, which is www.irena.org/IRELP, I-R-E-L-P, you can go into our Career Center and you'll find our internships database. For each posting that we have there, we give a description, so that includes the qualifications, the tasks that you would be responsible for, as well as application details. So in some cases, it'll be an online application form, which we'll link you to, and in other instances, it'll be directions on submitting a CV or potentially a statement of interest through email. But all of those details can be found on the particular internship postings on IRAL.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. And next question, I believe, is for Nicola, and it asks, is the skills gap being observed truly global, or is it worse in some countries than others?
What we see is that the fast-growing sectors have gaps into. The fast-growing sectors have the most gaps and difficulties to hire people, of course, and it is due for some sectors to a growth rate that is very high. So surprisingly, in the renewable energy sector, for some technologies, you do have growth rates that can reach 20 to 30% per year, which is something you can find in the internet technologies, for example, and usually in the industrial sectors not so much. But in the renewable sector, that's what you find, and this is where you will have the gaps. For most technologies, these strong growth rates are very localized for the moment. That's correct. So if you are looking at solar PV, if you are looking at wind in particular, it is happening in only a few markets for the up to now. But what we see for the future is that it will happen in many other markets. And I'm more familiar with the wind sector. What I see in the wind sector is that in the last, over the last 10 years, we had, there was like 3 major markets. And progressively you see Latin America, Central America, South Africa, Central Africa, and soon other countries also that will pop up. And these gaps will be much more widespread than they have been up to now.
Great, thank you, Nicola. And Axel, we have a number of people asking how they can get additional info. I know there was a list that was in there, and then some other information that we passed over. What would be the best way for them to access that? And is there, I can point them to the website where we're posting it. Is there another website that they could visit for additional information?
You mean about our services, or regarding the trends in the industry from the from a candidate point of view?
Well, someone was interested in the list that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What I can do is to add that list to the PDF version of the presentation. So that you can upload that to the Irena website or to your institute's website, or to send it out to the panelists. Generally, we have, regarding our company, of course, we have our website, which can be where we have all the our current open positions. But I think the best idea would be to add the information I mentioned, the list of job websites, to the presentation, and then distribute that.
Definitely, I think that's a great idea, and we can do that and post it up to Clean Energy Solutions training page along with the other presentations. So yeah, we'll be sure to do that. And the next question states that, Axel, you mentioned a recent downturn in some renewable energy sectors, such as solar. Could anyone elaborate a little bit on this downturn and discuss what needs to happen to overcome these obstacles?
Well, I think that's a specific German and maybe European thing. What happened in Germany is that you had an over incentivization of this market. It was really attractive to invest into the renewable energy sector, and really had a boom in the years like up to 2012, where we because the conditions for photovoltaics, for example, or for the wind industry were just very attractive, and they were somehow it was at the expense of the German because it's the feed-in tariff is being distributed, is not being paid. The premium which is being paid out to the PV companies, or not the companies, sorry, the solar park operators. The premium is being paid by the overall by all energy users at the end, because you will have an extra fee on your electricity bill, which is the attractive thing about the renewable energy feed-in law, that it's not being the surplus is not being paid by the state, by some budget which has to be provided by the state, but is being distributed somehow silently between all the energy users, because it's added to your electricity bill. So that made it very attractive, and at some point it became just very expensive, and there had been a big public discussion about the cost of renewable energies and the intensive of this strong growth in renewable energies. So the government was forced to reduce that and to make the feed-in tariffs less attractive. And for like 6 years in a row now, the feed-in tariffs for all the renewable energies have been decreased year by year, and which has made it less attractive. That's one thing. And the second thing which happened is that in some industries, especially in the solar business, European and US companies were really big in that business, and they were the leaders and the first companies to get to develop that market. And since like 6 years, the Chinese companies picked up really quickly. And at the beginning, people said, okay, you can buy a Chinese product, but it doesn't have a good quality. And that might have been true in the beginning. But what happened is that Chinese companies really improved their quality really quickly and offered a good price, and so they just took a big share of the market, where you had 80% European products at the beginning and 20% foreign products, and now you have like 90% Chinese products, even in Germany and Europe, and 10% European products. So it just turned around, which made which led to a lot of bankruptcies in the German and European markets. Big companies like Q-Cells and Conergy and so on, big players in the market, were somehow belly up, and that was what happened here in this market.
I can add something on that. Maybe there has been there have been several changes with the global crisis. So some governments have scaled down their support to renewable energy. So there is an example in Spain, for example, where there have been cuts to the support scheme, massive cuts, with retroactive effect also on existing projects, and therefore the big change in policy had an impact on the whole industry. So the industry was partly shut down. Then you can have, of course, I mentioned the example of the US market also. It's another thing. It's at federal level, and there are regular discussion about the support scheme itself. So when there is policy change or policy uncertainty, that's what you see. But also there is a characteristic to renewable energy. For most technologies, they require upfront capital. So you invest in the technology, and then your costs for running the plant are very low. This is slightly different. This is different from conventional technologies, where the upfront cost can be reduced, but then you have high operational costs. And with these specific of renewables, basically the thing is that you need to be able to access capital at a good rate in order to finance your project and to make your project bankable. And since there was a shortage of capital on the international market, what happened is that some companies could not invest into this project. At some point, the whole market was supported by large utilities, because they were financing this project on their balance sheet. But then even the large utilities at some point could not sustain the entire world market, and you saw this. You saw also variation there for the project. So there are the two. The governments were affected by the crisis, and some of them changed the policies, and also the access to capital was more difficult. So you had the conjunction of both in some places.
If you let me add one thing to that, Nicola, what the positive thing is that in many markets, renewable energies are being financed by them, by the project itself, because in the last 5 to 10 years, many projects were just financed or were just attractive because you had these high feed-in tariffs. But because the cost of the wind turbines and of the solar modules has gone down so significantly, you have more and more projects where where it is attractive from itself, for example, in competition to fossil fuels, where it's just cheaper to install a PV plant or a wind turbine instead of having a diesel generator or having other fossil fuels. And this really is kind of a breakthrough, and that's why the renewable energies are growing so quickly in markets like Africa, North Africa, South America, because you have very good conditions in terms of solar and wind, and the products are more and more attractive from a financial point of view.
Great, thank you, Axel and Nicola. And I'm going to group a couple of questions together here regarding international internships and also international jobs. And the question is, first of all, in general, what is some advice and how difficult is it to apply for an international internship or job? And since some countries do not have a program for it, and tied in with that, a lot of jobs also request that recipients or people applying for the job have additional language skills other than English. How important is that in your mind when applying for a position?
Okay, thank you, Sean. Yes, so for applying to internships internationally, lots of organizations actually do encourage people from all over the world to apply, and they will help you in getting a visa if necessary and sometimes provide housing. While others are really specific about those that can apply, so sometimes you will find companies or organizations that will only hire from their own country. Those details are always provided, but generally if it's not stated that you need to be a citizen of a certain country, then people are welcome to apply from any country, and it'll vary whether the company or organization will assist the intern in getting the necessary documents to actually work within that country. Definitely for languages, it's very important when an internship specifies that another language is needed. That is a requirement. Where it says that it's preferred, it's still worth applying to see. But yeah, definitely where it says that it's mandatory, then you would need to have that language skill to apply. Did I miss anything, Sean?
To follow up on that, though, is it, in your experience, have most international, looking at international internships separate from jobs, do most of them have language requirements other than English?
It's difficult to say. It varies. I mean, for international organizations, most are operating in English, but then there's always the added benefit of speaking another language. If you're going to work for a company in a specific country, for example, if you want to work in China, chances are you will need to speak that language. So yeah, it really varies from position to position.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. And the next question asks, do you have any view on the needs of policy influencers in those countries where renewable energy is only starting? Is there a transferable skill from developed economies to this area in lagging countries?
You're asking me? Okay, but I think I have to turn that question back to you, Sean, or to Nicola, because my focus is really on the industrial side of the like companies in that area. So I'm not that familiar with the policy side. I guess you would need those people, and there are organizations who provide international experts. I know you probably know the GIZ, the German organization, which is active all over the globe in spreading expertise also in renewable energies on the technical side, but also on the policy side. So there are these organizations, but maybe you and your organizations also, you can comment on that.
Yes, so I agree with Axel. So what we see in countries that are starting from scratch for developing renewable energy, there is a need to, or there is a willingness to look into what has been done in the past in other markets, and look if there are parts of it that can be transferred to the country. What we see also is that you can't just think like transferring a policy, for example, directly copy and paste to a country. It doesn't work. It needs to be like the overall philosophy of the policy can be studied, and then it needs to be adjusted to the local environment. However, there is indeed a sort of market for international experts that are helping countries to identify this kind of past examples and what can be learned from the stories. So that's the kind of thing we do with our policy team here. The GIZ is doing that, USID is also helping countries, etc. And there are people that are indeed policy experts, kind of, and that are helping to transfer the best practices to countries that are willing to learn from other parts of the world.
Thank you, Nicola. And next question I have is directed towards Stephanie, and it says, since Axel has said that practical experience is key, do the IREL courses focus largely on technical skills like installation, maintenance, things like that, or is it more theoretical? And do the courses include an internship provision?
Again, I'm sorry to keep saying this, but it really varies. We offer, through our database, lots of different programs. So it includes everything from vocational training, like those really technical programs with hands-on training, to professional development, which might be more suited to someone who's already working in the industry and maybe looking to upskill a little bit, or someone who is already working but then wants to transfer into the renewable energy sector. So for example, someone who's working in finance may take a course specific to renewable energy finance, then to transition into a position that focuses more on renewable energy. But we also do have bachelor's, master's, and PhD programs. Lots of those longer programs definitely do have internship components to them, lots of the bachelor's and master's in particular. And some are even co-op style, so that you would actually get some credit for taking an internship, while others just have that mandatory requirement. And in that case, lots of universities will assist in placing their students in internships.
Thank you, Stephanie. And one of our attendees asked what, if you could talk a little bit about what the job scenario in Germany might be like, especially in the wind energy sector.
Yeah, that's a very broad question. The job scenario. What we see regarding the wind industry is that the offshore industry has slowed down a little bit. There was a lot of ambition about and we also did a lot of work and placed many people in the offshore wind industry. Very attractive because it's high technology, high investment, very interesting jobs there. But here again, there was an issue of cost. It's really expensive to put your wind turbine at 30 meters water depth, 30, 40 kilometers out away from the beach, and bring back the electricity 365 days a year. So that's really has been a technical and a commercial issue. So that has slowed down a little bit. Wind industry is the wind onshore sector is still attractive, and we're moving more and more towards sales and project management. I think that's a general tendency because the production capacities are basically there. You will always develop your product and you will always improve and increase your efficiency, but the capacity basically is there. You need to find the customers and the projects to place your wind turbines in the market. So that's from a job perspective something with still strong demand in this year, next year.
All right, and the next question from the audience asks what the women's role in international renewable energy jobs looks like. Do they have any sort of advantage? How is the field in regards to that?
I think the it's more or less equal or equal opportunities. The renewable energy sector is from the background is kind of with the ecological thinking and sustainability and things like that are probably the thinking behind it, behind renewable energies is probably more is a more positive background for equal opportunities than maybe in other industries. I don't want to name any industries, but it's I think the conditions for equal employment are the same. I don't think there are advantages for women, but at least they should have equal opportunities.
On our side, we can see that there are programs to basically involve women, and even recently found a program for involving grandmothers. And the purpose is to stimulate entrepreneurship and to create micro companies or small business, and in particular in rural communities, where you can find that the role of women is very prominent in the business area. So the idea there is to basically involve these women to set up small companies, set up projects in order to grow renewable energy and also to help the electrification in a village or to manufacture devices also in a village. So it happens. I found things in India and Africa that are very interesting, and apparently the role of women in these societies is very different from what we can know from a European perspective, of course. And there is a dedicated role for these women to play in the field related to the field of development, electrification, and small business enterprise.
Great, thank you. And the next question points out that renewable energy has been called one of the next big job industries, similar to how the IT job industry was being called at the beginning. But then outsourcing occurred in the IT industry. So far, how do you evaluate the chances of outsourcing renewable energy jobs?
I think outsourcing it will not happen in a way like it happened in the IT industry, because in the IT industry and in the banking industry you have the many repetitive types of work. You don't really have that in the renewable energy sector. What you have, and that happens already, is that you have a value chain of companies, which is not all in one company. Or put it a different way, you have a wind turbine manufacturer. They might produce like 20% of the wind turbine themselves, and all the rest is being manufactured by external companies, similar to the iPhone, which is not produced by Apple but by some other companies. This happens also in this industry, but still, the jobs and the job perspectives are still there. It's not at the big, not only at the big turbine manufacturers, to stay in this example, but it's at the rotor blade manufacturers. It's at the generator and electronics companies who are delivering parts to the wind turbine manufacturer. So the jobs are still there, and it's maybe not only at the OEM producers, but also at the on the supplier side.
Great. We have time for a couple more questions. Next question is a short one, but I don't know if it's an easy one to answer. The question is, which country is currently leading the renewable energy education industry? If that can be summed up in a country.
Stephanie, where do you have most courses in your platform?
Probably in Germany.
Yeah.
To be honest,
okay.
I would say Germany definitely has a large number, but all over Europe would be, and the U.S. too. I think it's hard to say for sure, but definitely Germany, in the U.S., UK as well are offering lots. But for the most part, our programs are concentrated in North America and Europe.
Which might also tie back to the point made earlier about the international organizations that do a lot of policy work in some of the newer countries to renewable energy. That is where a lot of those are based, in Europe and North America.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephanie, do you offer certificates for courses or trainings on IRELP?
Well, IRELP actually isn't offering the training. It's our website is a portal to find training that's offered all around the world. So it varies from program to program, but many will offer a certificate of some sort, depending on the program type. But certainly, yes, many will offer a certificate.
Great. Now, one of our attendees wants to know if you can recommend any must-read books on the renewable energy industry, probably specifically, for people trying to get into that industry, or any resources, websites or any other resources that they could utilize.
They are very good news stream, actually. So I cannot give the names because I will not make publicity, but I think if you are looking into, getting interest into the renewable energy sector, it's extremely dynamic. So it's indeed possible to read books about renewable energy, and most of these books will be about the technology or environment or etc. There is, if you want a general thing, there is the IPCC report on the renewables. It's an excellent piece of work. And it gives you a good overview of what's happening. But then the whole thing is extremely dynamic. So probably the best thing to do is to read the news. And there are specialized journals or specialized companies in renewable energy that have news streams. And if you follow that, it gives you a very, very good overview of what is happening in this market. And it's changing every 6 months. The dynamics are changing very quickly. It's changing in terms of technology, in terms of geographic spread, and in terms of dynamics, what's happening between the companies. It's extremely interesting to follow, and it's, I would say, mostly through the news. And of course, the Irena website, which has excellent publications.
Great, thank you. And Stephanie, one more question for you real quick before we move on to the closing remarks and survey. how much is IRELP trying to reach down to Africa? Or do they have a lot of courses that are focused on renewable energy sector there?
That's a good question. We're currently trying to extend our database a little bit and focus more on Africa. What we found in the past is that it can be very difficult to find information on what education and training exists there because a lot of the information isn't available online. But we are, through our country support and partnerships division, reaching out to partners in Africa to gather more information on what training is available. So that's a strong focus for us right now.
Great. Thank you again to Stephanie and Nicola and Axel for the great discussion, and thank you for the attendees for submitting those questions to the panelists. And now I'd just like to move on to a quick survey that we have for our attendees that will just help us evaluate our webinars and improve going forward. So Maureen, if you don't mind, could you display that first question for the attendees?